So I'm about to post this up. I probably will I will post this out on my birthday. So that's in a few days. So once it's uploaded, that will be on my birthday. And I thought that would be a nice little treat for me while I'm in isolation because I still can't really go outside. It's still pretty dangerous in terms of the amount of people dying over here. And I just thought, why not give yourself all a treat and myself a treat by putting this out? And we'll get into it. Hi everyone. As you can tell by the title, this is something a bit different. I'm not actually reacting to something, I'm going to review it. And in this case, I'm going to review TharnType and Theory of Love. And at the end, I will do questions about both these programs and myself. So if you want to know a bit about me, then stick through to the end of the video. I will try and put timestamps. So if you haven't seen TharnType, then you're not spoiled by anything that is said in this review, and the same for Theory of Love. And hopefully then you can go and watch those programs, and I hope you enjoy them. So in this case, we are going to look at, I think we're going to look at TharnType first. I've made some notes. As you can see, these are notes that I'm making about the program. So let's talk about the plot. So we are established straight away that Type is the masculine sort of guy. We open up on him playing football / soccer, depending on what country you're from. Over here we call it football. And immediately he seems like he's a popular guy, someone that everyone likes, a bit stern because he's not smiling. And then we come to find out that he doesn't like gay people. And as he tells us this, we're introduced to Tharn. And I gather this is fan service because he's shirtless and he's putting his shirt on, and that's to please the younger audience, because I'm sure a lot of people do find Mew attractive. He's a very handsome man. And in the span of just a few minutes, we're also introduced to Techno, who then informs Type that Tharn is gay. I can't remember who told him. It was so long ago now that I've seen the first episode that I just can't remember. But he seems to know, and we know that Techno has a big mouth. In my case, I think it takes a few episodes to really get into TharnType. The first episode is not Type's best episode. In this, he's very homophobic, he's very aggressive, he's very much a bully, or at least he tries to intimidate Tharn. We see that he's very uncomfortable around him because of the gay issue, and he makes the assumption that because Tharn doesn't act in a effeminate way that he is not gay. So he's stereotyping gay people before he even has any realization what a gay person is. So from that, we then kind of get a back and forth between the two guys. I will say though, it was a good episode in terms of establishing a dislike for Type. It took me a while to get in, but in terms of establishing what you're going to feel about Type in those few episodes that starts, I think you're supposed to dislike him. I think that's the point. You're supposed to dislike him in the first episode because he's so aggressive and it's so nasty, and there was no need for what he does. He's touching Tharn's personal property, and I don't think you should touch anyone's property. You know, he's spewing things on the floor, he's ripping up posters, work of Tharn's, he's telling him to leave, he's writing homophobic slurs to tell him to get out. Thankfully, Tharn is quite a strong-willed character because he doesn't take any of the crap that Type gives out to him. In fact, he bites back. So in this instance, you would think Tharn was much more the strong-willed type, because this episode highlights that he's that. But you'll figure out as it goes along that Tharn is actually quite... he changes himself for people, to put it simply. And then we get introduced to, I guess, Type's friends, but two of them are not really worth talking about because they're not that important to any of the storyline, and they're barely in it for you to really get a sense of what they could be or why they're friends. They just seem that they all gravitate towards one another. I do think that the director did a good job in highlighting through cutaways, close ups, double shots, just what kind of emotions you need to have in this. Also, Tharn did a smart thing by having straight porn ready. Because if anyone is to accuse you of something, especially if they think you're gay, you have that ready. Because I've noticed in BLs they've started to highlight the idea of porn a bit more. I'm not sure if that's just for comedic effect or to highlight that young men tend to like a lot of porn. I don't know how true that is. I could be just making that up. I don't know. I do think they tried to put in a bit of comedy in this first episode, but sometimes it's a bit mismatched because of what is going on. And then we see almost a physical fight between Tharn and Type when Tharn follows Type outside. That was that wasn't choreographed very well. You can also tell the actor playing Type is still a bit nervous in his character. I think he's still finding out what his character's about. And that's not easy when you're new to acting because it takes a long time for you to really get into a character. But they had quite a while to shoot, usually long hours. And Mew's a really good actor, so he could have easily trained with golf and helped him understand the character. Then we get to the second episode. The second episode definitely is a much more type-centric episode. We start to get an understanding of why he is the way he is. This is also where this BL starts to delve into deeper cerebral meanings. This is a very dark theme, and usually BLs are very, or they used to be quite bubbly and light, young, but it's a nice change. We understand a bit more why Type is doing what he's doing. We understand that he was molested, and by the sounds of it, it went even further than that. But I haven't read the novels, and I might read them on a later date to see what's missed out from the novel, because they usually do that. But that's because things don't translate as well from a book to on the screen. They just don't. So they have to leave things out. It was also nice. We get a more sense already that Tharn is very attracted to Type, and he's not going to let that go. He seems to, in this instance, want to court Type. I feel like he knows he's repressing his homosexuality, and it's something he can understand because coming to terms with that takes a while, and Tharn may have come out at a younger age, but he probably is still learning about himself and what he likes. Because I don't think at this point, I don't think he truly knows what love is, and he seems to be intrigued by Type. We know he likes to touch him in his sleep, because we've seen that already happen. That's not something I personally enjoy, but I know people have already told me it's to soothe Type, and we gather straight away that Tharn is the only one that can really calm him down. Then we get Type telling his story about what happened to him and why he doesn't like gay people, but also just touching in general why he's a bit closed off because he hasn't been able to let go of that. Because I don't think anyone really took the time to sit him down and talk to him. And things like that have a lasting effect. And it looks like it was just brushed under the rug and people just carried on with their lives, forgetting that a young boy was affected by this. Also, the first few episodes are very, very steamy, sensual. It's all about sex with them when it first starts. And we get that from the infamous shower scene. Now, people could take that in a variety of ways. Some people just found it very sexual. Other people may have found that a bit uncomfortable because of how it transpired. It almost felt like, well, it was. Tharn was pushing himself on Type. We know Type enjoyed it, but at the same time, you are encroaching in someone's space, and then you start touching them and kissing them and doing inappropriate things because he goes down on him. But I think that's also trying to establish a sexual connection and attraction that they both have for one another. We know Type is falling for him at a slower pace. He's trying to understand his feelings. I think he was attracted to Tharn when he first saw him, but repressed how he felt. Because if he represses it, then he doesn't have to live through the memories of what happened to him as a child. Because he probably has the assumption that all gay people do that to people. And obviously we know that's not true. Then I would say, really and truly, the next real few episodes are more about just, I guess, a sexual connection between them. It's more about the sex. It's not really about falling in love yet. Then we see the conflict that they have with one of the supporting female roles. I felt pretty bad for the character because she liked Type, and he was trying to be attracted to her. He was trying not to think about Tharn in that way. But you can't help thinking about someone when you're sleeping with them, because it wasn't just once. Remember, he said he was only going to sleep with him once as a payback. Which, let's get back to that actually. That was a very weird thing for anyone to say. I've never in my life seen someone do that. So that should have been a big warning sign to Type that he was attracted to Tharn. And also, what I missed out on their first sexual experience together was the infamous ice scene where they passed ice between one another. Very sexual thing. It's also a contrast of the idea of hot and cold. Because what is transpiring with the kisses is something hot and passionate, and then the ice is to cool it down. And what does that create? Steam. And they are very steamy scenes. So then we go back to what I was talking about, and we see Type struggling with his sexuality until he realizes that Tharn is the one for him, and he's finally starting to let go of being afraid to admit that he likes Tharn. And what I liked with this is we got a gradual build up of him telling people. So he didn't want anyone to know. Then he was willing to let his best friend know. Then he started to say it to people in front of Tharn to make sure that everyone knew they were together. Each episode got better. And then we get to the end scenes where we start to figure out that Long has a bigger role in what happened to Tar. Because all we know with really Tar is that something happened to him, very dark, depressing, because we see the pictures. We see him shut off. He went to France and he's come back and he's still not himself. And then with Long, we see a gradual build up. And something they did with Long, which is he would always have this half smile, or you would see him look off. And that was always a warning sign because he's uncomfortable or he's lying. And we figure out he's just psychopathic. He's very psychotic. And that was something that they did very well. And then we get to the last few scenes where everything has been building up. We know Tharn and Type are now in love. They really care for each other. They've got that young love because they're both supposed to be 19. They want to be together. They're speaking about being together forever. They've had that moment of where they break up, which we find out Tharn doesn't like that word because he's been broken up before and it's something that really upsets him. And we've seen throughout that Type's way of affection is insulting you. So when he insults you, he's being affectionate. But he has a lot of flaws in his character that by the time we get to the end really has developed. And what I liked was we got to see that development at a really nice pace because it was very fast paced at first. It was very steamy, just sex. And then they started to cut that off halfway through. And so that we could now see a relationship actually forming between them. And then we get to the last few episodes, which I consider big highlight for TharnType. I think the last few episodes are really what establishes TharnType as probably a top BL tier. But we had every sort of emotion you could have going through that. The characters went through all different types of scenarios to building up to that last episode. And I think that last episode was the best episode. It was obviously also 90 odd minutes long, so it was much longer than they usually are. And it was just really good to see what these actors can do. I felt the ending was really a great establishment of how far they both have come. And we also got to see a bit of interaction with other characters that we had been missing since they moved out into their own condo and were living together. I mean, their relationship did happen quite fast. At least that's how the TV show makes you feel, because you can't really tell with time. It's a bit difficult because a week could have passed, but you're not going to have any idea because they don't establish that in TV shows and films unless someone mentions it or it's on the screen. But other than that, we just had to go with our gut feeling that time had passed. And we got a really nice ending fight scene where Long is revealed his true evil tendencies to everyone. And just a little back and forth because he talks about how Tar looks innocent but isn't. And that was a very subtle and smart way that the director put that in, because once you figure out what Long's like, you can look back at those episodes and go, he's actually talking about himself. He's given Type clues. And we know Type is very, very smart. It's highlighted actually throughout that he's very good at school. He picks up on things very easily. And I feel that was something he picks up on. And then the plot just delves into kind of Long breaking down and realizing no one loves him, and we see that he didn't really have affection, and in the long term it's really damaged his mind to where he now thinks no one should be worthy of his time apart from Tharn, and no one should have Tharn but him. And this is what happens when you're left by yourself and no one helps you out. I would say we are looking at a show that wants you to think. It wants you to go back. It wants you to catch little Easter egg clues. I mean, look at the t-shirts that they wear. I think every episode the t-shirt relates to either something that's going to happen in the future or something that needs to happen now. We saw one that says hug that Techno's wearing, that in that moment everyone in that episode needed a hug. We saw I'm a boy not a toy. Just little clues as well. If you look, all the t-shirts seem to be a clue for you to figure out what's going to happen later on down the line. And we ended on a very good note. We ended on TharnType still together, still very much in love years later. That bleeds into Love by Chance. And it just gave you a sense of closure, even though we know season 2 is coming. That's years in the future, but it gave you a closure on that chapter in their life, and it takes you away from them being young teenagers to adulthood. They're fully embracing their relationship. They may not tell everyone, but they don't hide that they're together. And we also just know that plot-wise is to bring forth the idea that if you talk things through, you work things through, you can make a relationship work. As long as you care for one another and you don't always accuse one another. So now I'm going to go into the characters. I know that wasn't too long, and you may not feel like that was a fair review of what I was doing, but we can talk about that in the comments section. So I'm going to go into the characters and talk about them. So let's start with Thaniel, who is Tharn's younger sister. Cute young actress. She was very good at her role. But I grew really tired of her character. I thought she was very rude to Thorn. And people seem to find that really cute because she's young, and I thought, no, she's just spoiled. And then she was gone, and we never really got to see her again, and so that felt a bit awkward because you could say then that she wasn't needed at any point in the story, really, because her disappearance was just very strange, especially when Tharn was in the house. There was no real talk of her that much, maybe a mention here and there. I thought they could have done a bit more with her character and made her less ready to insult Thorn. I just didn't like that part of her. But the actress did a really good job of playing her age. That's what children are like. Now we're going to go to Tay. Now was Tay a member of the band? Because if so, there's not really much to say about him, but then we got a nice little interaction between him and Long where they were going to fight. That was also a good episode to highlight what Long is really like. And I felt that's what he was just used for. He was just used as a subtle plot device to bring Long's character more to the forefront. And also just to fill up the band quota so that they had 4 members. So, okay, we spoke about Tay, so why don't we talk about Song? Song was obviously younger than them. He idolized Tharn. He loves music. We know that because they showed us that he was good on the guitar, even though that was very obviously not him playing. We saw him also complain to Tharn that he wants a girlfriend. I think he was just a very sweet, innocent, naive character. And he was a representation of what they want these characters to be when they're that age. But unfortunately for some of them, that was taken away from them. So Song represents when you do have a nice upbringing, a nice family, and you're just young and innocent and sweet, and just really friendly. I thought he was a great little supporting, like maybe tertiary character. You didn't really need to know too much about him, you just liked having him about because he was always smiling. Then why do we go to Com, who was Type's best friend? I didn't realise he was the actor in Two Moons 2. It wasn't until I looked him up so I could know their names and I recognised him. That was a nice little part. It almost felt like he was a special guest role. We figured out he's gay. It seems like every character needs to be gay or bi in these if they're male to be in these type of shows. It was also nice because we got a sense of Type's home life. And he seemed to just really have great friends, great family. Obviously issues arose, what happened. But I didn't like how it ended with his friend. I haven't watched the special episode, and I will watch it, so don't worry, my opinion could change, but this is a review, and I want to do the review of these episodes, and then I will look at the special. I didn't like how it ended, though, as I said. It felt Type didn't get to say sorry, and that's something that they should have used more to play in his mind. And I just would have liked to have seen Com in it a bit more, because it was just one episode, and it was half the episode, I think. And then you kind of, in my case, you forgot about him. So that's about him. Okay, so we have Chloe and So. They were some of my favourite characters in this because they broke up a lot of the tension if Techno wasn't there. It also just highlights that Chloe was nosy and was trying to listen into the arguments, and that is a natural element of people. And he was open and honest about it. He didn't hide what he was really doing. And also just the fact that So was constantly watching his K-pop dramas, his K-pop, and yes, I know he's in the actor's in a Thai Korean band, but it was just nice. That was a nice comedic moment to watch So dance and to K-pop music, and Chloe's reaction to him, not understanding him, and then So admitting that he likes him but saying it in Korean so that he couldn't tell what he was saying. And they actually got a closure. We got to say goodbye to them when Tharn and Type moved out. They weren't needed anymore in the show, and I wasn't upset about that once the show had progressed, because we got to see them at the end, but they weren't needed. We didn't need to really know them because they weren't really in the group of friendship that Tharn or Type had, and they were also older. So they had more things to focus on, or they should have had more things to focus on. I would have loved to see them in it more and be in the group of friends, which they were at the end, but you can't really say much more than I would love to know more about these two. I would love to see a spin off of those two as a couple and how they came about. Then we have San. San, I do wish he had been in this a lot more, and there was a lot more conflict with him because we got Tharn to speak about him without saying his name. So what they did is they spoke about him, and then he was on the phone, then we met him, and then he left. So they did that build up, but he was a strange character. At points he felt very creepy. I mean, he was talking about Tharn when Tharn, in my eyes, was underage. I don't think he was even 15 of the legal consent age, and he still spoke about him as a memory of that age. So that creeped me out. I think it didn't help that the character's supposed to be about 20, 21, but the actor did look about 30. So him speaking about a younger Tharn felt very off to me. And then they made him, but he was more supposed to be someone you didn't like, but he never felt he didn't really feel like a threat. The way they put his character together, he felt like he was just to push the plot along. It was more or less he was just there to get Type to admit his feelings, and once he did that, he was no longer needed, and Tharn and Type's relationship blossomed. Okay, so let's put. I guess I'm going to put Techno and Champ together. Now, Champ was only really someone who turned up when he either wanted food or Type to help him study. So he kind of used people, but it wasn't in a mean way. He was just that type of friend who was like, could you help me out? I need a bit of help, or I'm always hungry. Let's go eat. Because he can really eat. He was doing Muay Thai, so he was doing Thai boxing. That was nice to see a bit of culture added into the show. And just that little scene where obviously his female friend was more or less admitting her feelings for him, and he was very oblivious. I felt that was also to highlight to the audience that he doesn't like women, or at least he doesn't like that woman. But we didn't get a focus on anything else really. He was just kind of turns up, cause a bit of conflict indirectly between Tharn and Type with one of his female friends, and then he was just in the background. And then we have Techno. Techno was one of the best characters in TharnType. Mild, the actor, does an amazing job of comedy. Sometimes a bit over the top, but that's what they want for his character. He's supposed to make you laugh, and then the added sound effects are what brings that to life for him. We actually got a lot of Techno. We saw a bit of his family life. We saw his house. We saw how close him and Type are. And I mean, they are very close. He's the first one to find out about their relationship. And Type is never upset that he knows. He just lets it happen. And I think that highlights they're really good friends. He also turns to Techno all the time, and Techno turns to him. They're always arguing, but in a banter, friendly way. And this is why I want to bring up him with Champ. I don't understand why the director made it seem as if they were going to end up as a couple. He had them arguing like a couple. He had them say innuendos to one another. We even saw in the last episode that Champ puts his arm around Techno and Techno looks, and that almost felt as if that was an inclination that something was going on between them. I would have preferred them to be a couple. I'm not a big fan of who they are actually with in the future. And that's not something I'm going to go into because that's a different BL. But Techno was great because we actually saw a bit of human side to him, because usually he's the comedy, he's the jester, he's the fool, he's supposed to make you laugh, but we actually saw elements where he was really trying to help Type, and wanted to talk to him and make sure he was okay. And that added dimension to his character. It didn't feel as if it was just he needs to make you laugh, 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 and that's all there is to him. There was genuine concern for Type. He also didn't like when they ganged up on Tar, and that was something I really appreciated in his character because that made you go, okay, he understands things are not okay in this moment, and he's not using humor to divert that away from what's happening. I do wish we had seen him a bit more. He was in sometimes he was in it a lot, and then other times he was just not in it at all. But I just wanted him to have a relationship at that point. I know he has one later on, but he really was just such a great character, and I don't think the show would have been as good without him. I think it would have actually gone down, in my estimation, if he wasn't there. Then we have Thorn. Thorn, I think, was supposed to be a very cold, intimidating presence because Type was very polite towards him, almost afraid, which I couldn't understand because I didn't find the actor intimidating at all. But the silent ones are the ones you are supposed to look out for. They always tell you the ones that are quiet are the deadliest people. And also, he, like Techno, has a big mouth. You can't tell either of those two characters anything without them going back and telling everyone around you. So don't tell them anything. And this was highlighted repeatedly with both of them. But he was a good brother. He was always there for Tharn. He stuck up for him, but he was never aggressive when he spoke to Type. He just wanted to know why things had happened. And I hope we see him more. I hope we see him in season 2. I'm sure we will. Because I would love to have a little bit of a story for him. See him end up with someone, because that would be really nice. And he's very dedicated to his baby sister. But I think he needs to also distance himself from her. But he's also the voice of reason. He was the most mature out of all of the characters bar the parents. And so that was always good. Whenever we needed that moment of maturity, his character turns up. And he makes everyone realise that they may be being a bit childish, a bit foolish, and to think things through. So I really appreciate what they did with his character. I'm going to go into Tar and Tom together because they were the main side supporting couple, even though they weren't a couple in this. We know they were friends with Tharn. We know Tar dated Tharn, and that caused Tom and Tharn's band to break up. And you really feel for Tom because he's in love with his stepbrother. They're stepbrothers, and that actually is something that took me a few episodes to realise. And I thought, well, this doesn't seem right. I'm not into incest, so I don't really want to watch these scenes. And then as it goes along, you realise they're not blood related. Their parents just happened to marry. I do like what they did with their characters when they were on screen, but they had a problem where sometimes they turn up in the last 2-3 minutes, and it was a waste of the actors and it was a waste of the scenes. You didn't need it. It didn't pull the story. It didn't push the story along. It was really a waste. But then when they got a lot of screen time, it was great. We got to see their struggle. Tom trying to deal with what happened to Tar because Tar has not told him, and he does not tell him throughout the whole season 1. And we know I don't think he even knows In Love by Chance for a long time, so he doesn't know for years down the line what happened to the person he loves. I think for them it ended on a good note before Tar goes to France. There seems to be an inkling that they both do have feelings for one another, and Tar is moving on from his feelings from Tharn. But I would have liked to have seen Tom especially in it more. Because with Tar we did get to see him near the end, a lot more of his character, and the young actor did a really good job of showing that fear, that disgust in himself, not being able to express what happened to him, living in depression, being afraid of people because he's always feeling he's going to be attacked, but he's very gullible. And it also highlights how much he cares for Tom, because as soon as he hears his brother's name, he'll go and follow anyone, and that's a dangerous thing. especially with what happened to him. And I think that's also a highlight of how young he is, but also just how innocent and how good of a person he was. And see that happen to him and see him break down is a really hard thing to see. I'm just glad that they ended at that point on a good note for both of them because they needed that happiness and to move on from what happened. Don't forget, but move on. Then we have Long. I picked up on something not being okay with Long quite early on. He was always in Tharn's way. He was always trying to get his attention. He was too obsessed with him. He knew too much about Tharn. That made you go, okay, well, this is a bit creepy. And as the episodes went along, we got to see that gradual build up. We got to see him say certain things that were a reflection of himself. And when you look back, you can see half smiles, looks, attitude changes that are a big red flag. And then it built up, and we got a special episode that I liked, but I did feel like we didn't need the first, I don't know, 5-6 minutes of it. We just needed the backstory. And Long is the character that I think is designed to make you feel maybe 1% bad for him. I don't think you're supposed to forgive him, and say what he did was okay. But I think you're also supposed to look at it and go, if you look at this from multiple perspectives, his childhood is what created the monster that he became. And if he had a better upbringing, he might not have turned out to be the way he was. But we can't know that because obviously that's happened. And we can't go back in time and change history. But I loved the last episode with Long. I loved how we saw the desperation that he had for no one to find out it was him, even though the world was crashing around him. And also, and just how dangerous he really was. He grabbed a brick to bash over the head of Type and could have killed him and would have killed him if no one was there. He wouldn't have got away with it because he's not that smart. He relies on his emotions too much. And also, I just thought he was a terrible liar. If all the characters just spoke to one another, they could have figured out who the common denominator was in all of these stories, how easy it was to tell that Long was lying, that he was always turning up in places that he shouldn't have been at, and you would have thought they would have gone, why are you here? We know at the hotel he spoke to Tharn and told him to meet him there, but with Type, it just felt very strange when he met up, and I think Type picked up on that quickly as well, of why are you here? Long's character is very complex. It's not a very simple, he's just a bad guy. There's layers to his character, but there's also a childlike demeanour in him. He has regressed to when he was a child, and that's what he remembers. So that's why I feel he's so dangerous, because he relies on the past to create his future. And he doesn't think of all the hurt he causes people. He doesn't even think about Tharn in the long run. He just thinks, he is mine, I want him, even though that's not the case. I also think Long is a character that you want to have redeeming qualities, but knowing what he's done, you can't forgive him. And you're not supposed to forgive him 100%, but you are supposed to be able to relate to him, not in the evil side of him, but in the loneliness and not feeling wanted. And I think that's what the director was doing. He was trying to create a multi-layered villain. Someone who wasn't just out there for revenge and to be mean. It was someone who was damaged. And I think the actor who played Long did an amazing job, especially in the last episode, when he's having to cry for such a long period of time. That's a very draining thing to do. And I applaud that actor for doing that. Then we have, I'm going to go to Tharn. Tharn is the least complex of the two main characters. He's a lot more confident, he's been out longer, but he is very naive. He tends to see the good in everyone because he wants to see the good. I think he's just naturally a very happy, kind person. And so he doesn't like to think everyone is bad, and why not give someone a chance? He's just really kind, but very naive, and people do use Tharn because he gets used throughout the show. But it is nice that we can see he can stick up for himself. He can be assertive. I do think he was trying to change himself too much for Type. And that's something he has to work on, because if you change yourself completely for someone, they are not worth your time. Because you should never have to change yourself 100%. And it felt like that's what he was doing at the beginning. He's also very dramatic. When he has a breakup with Type, he acts as if it's the end of the world. And it's really not. I don't really mean that. It's really not the end of the world. It's okay. You don't have to, think that. But it also relates to his age. He's 19 and he's so young. And yes, he's had boyfriends, but he's never been in love. And we get to see a character truly fall in love. I think he loved Tar, but I don't think he was in love. And those are two different things. He was also used at the beginning as eye candy, as to get all the young people that watch this to really giggle, probably scream. He's a very good looking guy, and I'm glad that they went away from that. He was shirtless at points a lot of the time, but then they took away that element and really let Tharn have a lot of layers to him. He had a great upbringing. We see that he has a very loving family, but and again, people always use him, and that's something that's really hurt him throughout his life, because he always wants to know why people break up with him, because there isn't anything wrong with him. That's the point. I think it's because he's just too nice, and people like a bit of bite in the person they're dating, and we see that come out in his relationship with Type, and he has such a growth from. Well, no, that's not no. So I think Tharn has a lot of hardening to do. We don't need to see him believe everyone all the time. And I hope we get to see him stand up for himself more, because we only really got that at the end. And we finally got to see him not change himself completely. He had to understand what was going on between him and Type and why Type was doing this. But it was also smart of Type not to tell him, because of the character that Tharn is. If he knew, the plan would have been spoiled. And then we have Type. Type is probably one of the most complex characters a BL has ever had. And he isn't just a BL character. He is a fully developed character. He starts off so aggressive, so dislikable, so mean, so bullyish, so repressed, and not just his homosexuality, but what happened to him. And we see a character blossom. We see each episode he's coming to terms with his sexuality, who he is as a person, letting go of what happened to him, understanding that the people around him care for him. We get to see a nice build-up of his feelings for Tharn. This isn't something that just happens. It's a build-up to the point where he's so in love that he's willing to break up with the person he loves to save them the hurt that could happen down the line. And not just if they broke up, but he needed to make sure that Long was caught out. And he doesn't want to leave Tharn's side, but he lets go of his own pain to help catch Long. And that shows so much growth in his character, because he wasn't even being aggressive. If you notice, his aggression got less and less the more comfortable and happier he got with Tharn and just growing up. And he didn't use his anger anymore. And that was a really big growth for his character, because he's had a really complex childhood. He probably didn't have a great teen years because he was figuring himself out, and he started to realise that. I think he was attracted to Tharn straight away, and that's why he was so angry when he found out he was gay. And we know he shows his affection by insulting you, but he also loves to grab you by the shirt. And that aggression was something that really needed to be ironed out. He needed someone to talk to, and he got that in Tharn. He got someone who understood him better than anyone else, and someone he understood better than anyone else. And we saw with Type that we saw such a nice progression of coming to terms, as I've said, with his sexuality. We got to see him tell people how he felt, and he is the most layered character because he's transitioned from episode 1 to the last. He's not the same person, and he's the one who has the most growth. He's the one who has grown up a lot, and he was the most immature out of everyone. And Type allows you as an audience member to feel every bit of emotion. So at point you dislike him, at other points you feel bad for him, and then you're angry with him again. Then you feel sorry for him, and then you're cheering for him, and then you're realizing he has grown so much, and he's really trying to look after Tharn, and he's trying to make Tharn a better person and himself a better person. And for that, he is the best character in TharnType. He makes you think. It's not just a simple, oh, they're together, they're going to kiss, it's going to be cute. No, they bring a lot of darkness to this show. And he brings a lot of layers. He brings depression, he brings anger, he brings passion, he brings a lot of emotions into it. And we get to go on the roller coaster ride with him. By the end of it, you can't help but smiling at him and seeing he has truly grown. He's comfortable in himself. He's happy with who he is, who he's dating, his family life, his friendships. And he doesn't need to use anger as a means to let out how he feels. He can now talk to people. And Type is the smartest one out of all of them. We know this because it's highlighted throughout the show that he is academically smart, as well as very intuitive. He picked up on Long quite a while ago, if you look. I think he picked up on Long when Long said, Tar looks innocent, but he's not. He's so smart, he picks up on things, but he plays along. And that's also growth in his character. Instead of acting angry, he planned things out. He wanted Long to trip up. And he didn't rely on his emotions to act out anymore. He was very rational. And it's also highlighted how smart he is because Champ constantly goes to him for study and advice. I just think when you look back at this, I think you should all look at the growth Type has as a character. So that is TharnType. I hope this review is okay. It is my first time. I'm sure I'll get better as things go along. It's almost 50 minutes in. I didn't realise it was going to be so long. So we're just going to head straight into... Well, actually, before we do, any spoilers, if you haven't seen Theory of Love, please go watch that first before listening to this, because you will be spoiled on stuff. And I don't want that. I think you should go and see these shows, then come back. Okay, so let's get into Theory of Love. Theory of Love, for most of it, I was not bored at all. I felt they highlighted these characters in a very, very realistic way. Yes, there was a lot of angst, and there were comedy moments dabbed into it, but the actors' growth and their acting is amazing. I feel like everyone should watch this because there is so much to pick apart from the characters. The plot, more or less, is Third has feelings for his best friend, Kai, and has been hiding this for 3 years and hasn't wanted to tell him how much it breaks his heart every time Kai is with a different woman, or just anyone. At this point, Kai is only with women. There is no sexual attraction he has for for Third. And what we see is, throughout this series, we see, I think, every episode, Third cries. And we see just how much heartache he goes through because of Kai, and how much Kai doesn't realise he's hurting him. But yet, whenever he wants to turn to someone, or wants to speak to someone, or cares about someone, it's always there. Kai always turns to Third for everything in his life, and will never hurt, or thinks he doesn't hurt Third. He cares about Third more than any of the girls he ever dates, any of the other characters. I would say the only people that he probably cares about more... No, I think he cares about Third more than his family. They are so close that he doesn't want to lose him, and we see that. because no matter what he does, even though he's very selfish, he always turns to third no matter what happens. And what we get to see is actually a nice build up, because the first half is third hiding his feelings, and then two, one of the friends and Bone finding out his feelings for Kai. Then we get a really uncomfortable scene where Kai is trying to get Third to not like him and really damages him and hurts him, and it's a really, really intense, uncomfortable scene. To then we having Kai chasing after Third, and Third showing him no attention. It's almost as if he's just defeated, and Third is depressed throughout the whole entire show, and the acting is so brilliantly done because it's little nuances, little looks, little reactions, crying, yelling. There is a lot of drama that goes into that show, and it to me doesn't feel childlike. I feel like I'm actually watching a real life couple go through these type of things. Theory of Love really highlights what happens when you're afraid to tell someone you love them because you're afraid to lose their friendship. And then what happens when it turns out the person that you love could love you back. And we get to see that. And it's also done in a smart way, because it's not just that Kai has feelings for him straight away. He has to understand himself, and it's a build up. And then he really does just chase after him. And that's in line with his character throughout. He's a very confident person, and when he wants something, he goes for it, even if he's rejected, which he is multiple times throughout this. And it's a nice shift because of the plot. You really start to feel for Kai. You really dislike him at first, and then you end up growing to feel sorry for him and loving his character. And it flipped for me. In the end, I couldn't really stand the character of Third. I just felt he was too nasty, very blunt, very aggressive, very callous in his feelings. But yet he cares so much for a person who constantly hurts him, because he knows that no one else can match how he feels for Kai. And that was something that really resonated with me. So I implore you all to go and watch Theory of Love, because you will see at the beginning it's very much centered on Third and Kai not realizing what he's doing to Third and how much heartache Third goes through. Then we get to a second act which starts to introduce more of Bone and Third's love interests, which differ. Two has, so not Third, so Two and Bone. So Two has kind of two love interests, which is Un and Lin. Lin, both of his relationships, if I'm honest, are a bit awkward. I'm not a big fan of how they presented it, because Lin was used as a plot device just to get Two to realise his feelings for Un. But they got a resolution, but I feel like it needed to be a bit more fleshed out. Her character wasn't used enough for you to really get to know. And then Bone in the plot has feelings for his teacher, who he doesn't find out is his teacher until a few episodes in. And I got a bit confused because they did make it seem like they're the same age, and then they're not. She's definitely older. And his plot was his development, his feelings, and it was one-sided. And I like that. I like that not everyone gets their happy ending by the end of this. Or it turns out their happy ending isn't with the person they think it is. And he was the most mature. And I like that they highlighted he was the most mature. He was going for an actual relationship that didn't just center on her physicality. Even though that is something that really bugs me throughout the plot, is how they speak about women. And it's just them being young men, but it is ridiculous how they don't get punched in the face by some of these women. And the ending, I do actually think the finale is nowhere near as strong as TharnType's. I do actually think you could have ended Theory of Love an episode before. There was some nice tie-ups from it, and we got to see a happy ending. We got to see kiss scenes. We got to see if their relationships lasted, and how Theory of Love came about, because it's a commercial based on their life. And it just ended on a very good note, but it could have ended the episode before. So let's get into. I know that wasn't a long thing about the plot, but let's get into the characters. So Shane, who was the director, he was used sparingly. He was used more towards the end. I liked his dyed blonde hair. I know that's a weird thing, but it brought the character more to life than what he does with his natural dark hair. He was used as a little bit of comedy, and he was also used to stir up tension because he told Kai to leave Third alone, and he lied by saying that Un and Third had something going on when they didn't, even though the audience was supposed to believe there was some form of attraction, but not enough for them to date. And he was just more or less used as the director. He really gets irritated. He's quite stern in who he wants to cast, which I understand because when I am casting people, I have the same attitude. I'm not as dismissive as he is, but when you need a specific type, you have to let everyone else go, and you can't say sorry if they're upset. You just have to say you have to move on. But he was a nice little added element because he also brought some of the characters together because he would speak to them and make them kind of understand that maybe they either need to let things go or they need to talk. So yeah, Shane was a nice little tertiary character. I would have liked to have known a little bit more about him, but it isn't enough in this story to get to know him. Then we have Pan. She is the love interest for Bone, but it's one-sided. He has a deep attraction to her, but she doesn't feel it, and she never ever shows an attraction to him. He is her student, and it's very professional. She just thinks he's very talented, and I like that we got to see a female character that wasn't designed to just get you to hate her and to break up a relationship. She was an adult, she was a professional, she was very good at what she did, and she had her own issues with her fiance, who we find out is cheating on her. And we got to see a nice scene where she was crying and she was distraught because she knew it was happening. And it added to the layers because she's very mysterious at first. Her character shows up, she doesn't show up, and then we find out she's a teacher. And then she does share a quick kiss with Bone, but it's regrettable for both of them straight away because she's drunk and it's obvious she doesn't have feelings for him. And what I like is her character, you can tell, knows he has feelings for her, but she respects him so much at his editing skills that she wants to make sure that he has every opportunity available for him for a career. Which we know, he fails classes because he never turns up. But Pan was a great use of a female character that finally wasn't just used to break up the boyfriends or cause conflict. She genuinely was there to highlight Bone's growth. And I do wish we got a bit more of them, but they were side characters and it's not their story that's being told. Then we have Lynn. I remember the actress from Sotis, so she seems to play the same type of characters, which is meek, mild, sweet, innocent. It might just be her style of acting that she does. She likes to put her hair behind her ear a lot. They're all beautiful, they're all good-looking people. She's an absolutely beautiful actress. But there wasn't much to her character. She was just there to kind of build a friendship with Tu, even though he has an attraction to her. Then he then realizes isn't an attraction, it's just a friendship. And then she just kind of comes in and they kind of date for maybe a day, and then she realizes he has feelings for Un, and it just thankfully ends on a really good note between them two, and that you can tell they're going to have a friendship in the future. But she was just used sparingly. There isn't much more to say. That she's just a very nice character. And then we have Un. I still don't understand why they treated him so badly. He just seemed like a genuinely nice, calm, collective, cool guy. But he was treated, apart from Third, the others treated him like crap. and it made me uncomfortable watching. And his character was, he has feelings for two, and he's always had feelings for him. He's just never said anything. And I think his character is gay because it seemed to be highlighted that even though he kissed that girl, it was him trying to see what it was more like to kiss a girl and understand why two likes another woman instead of him. But his relationship with Un, it was okay, but it didn't feel like a relationship. Like there was no kissing, no hand holding. They more or less just shared a hug, and it just felt very awkward. It didn't feel natural. His character was great. He was also someone on the set, so he was behind the scenes. He was production, and we got nice little elements because he was also a main foe for Kai. Kai was very intimidated by Un. He thought Un had a relationship with Third, in a relationship that Kai wanted to have with Third, and he thought he was being taken away from Third by Un. And instead, it turns out that wasn't the case. And they used him quite nicely because, again, him and Two were more of a focal relationship than Bone and Pan. And his character was there to kind of represent longing, just like there was in Third. But in this case, their relationship was nowhere near as developed. And I'd like to know a bit more about them, but I don't think we are. And this is over an hour. I apologise. I'm probably talking a lot of rubbish, but it's just a review. When it comes down to it, you can always talk about it in the comments section. Then we're going to go on to Bone. Again, Bone was the most mature out of everyone in this group of friendship, which, by the way, sucked. Their friendship group, they were terrible friends to one another. Terrible. But he was the most mature. He was working. He wanted a relationship with an older person that didn't feel weird. It felt natural. He didn't feel like a child chasing after an older person. He was also more of the cool, calm, collected one. He didn't usually overreact to things. He liked to have a good time, but he also didn't create a lot of tension. In parts he did. I do think we could have had Bone a bit more. I mean, we got to see him in the friendship group, but we still didn't really get to know enough about him. But he seems like a very caring guy, and also he seems like someone who would be a great boyfriend. And he does eventually find someone. They aren't Pan, but he does find someone, and he's very happy with that person. He falls in love very easily, or at least he falls for women quite easily. And he's more that character in the background of the friendship group that is the voice of reason, usually. He's also closer to Kai and Two than he is Third. I think he and Kai are more of the closer friends in that friendship group. Then we have Two. Two is a great friend to Third. He's always there for him. He's always willing to listen to him. But he's also talking about boobs all the time. And he's chasing after Lin. And then he's chasing after Un. And then we get to see him trying to come to terms with his feelings for another male. Because I don't think he's ever felt that way for a guy. And we see that near the end that he really does have feelings for him. Because he gets jealous. He gets upset over Un. He gets depressed. He reverts into his shell. And Two is the comedic element of this show. He's used to bring laughter to what's going on. But he is a terrible friend to Kai. I mean, terrible. And I don't know if it's the actor White, but I feel like he doesn't actually feel very comfortable around gay people and playing a gay role. I've yet to see him feel very natural in those type of roles. I feel like the actor doesn't actually like... I feel like there's slight homophobia. And that's okay, because I do think that in some of the other actors who do these shows, I feel like for them it's just to make money and to become famous and to get known. And he is a good actor. I just find he's very uncomfortable when it's another guy. He's the scene with Un and two when they hug was very uncomfortable. It just didn't feel natural. But he was a great listener for Third, and this is a character that you appreciate for that because he keeps Third grounded and calm, and we need that in him. I just wish we could have got a bit more with him with Un, because him and Lin just didn't really mesh well. They didn't really develop that relationship in the best way. And then we have Kai. Now, Off, who plays him, his acting compared to when I first saw him it's been what 4 or 5 years, is amazing. He truly can act. He is fantastic throughout all of this because he makes you dislike the character of Kai a lot. But then he can switch it around and make you feel bad for him. We see him cry. We know he's good at comedy because Off by nature is a very extrovert, confident individual. And in this, we get to see Kai's insecurities. We get to see him cry. We get to see him understand how he treated Third, is how Third is treating him now, and how it actually feels when the tables are turned. And he makes the audience relate. Is a 180. I could not stand the character at first because of how he treated Third and how much damage he caused him, to then really liking the character and feeling sorry for him. And it shows that he cares and he is trying to change. This is a character that you can't just change straight away. He's a player. He likes girls. He's never been in love and he is very selfish. And throughout this, we're learning someone who becomes selfless, who's learning to care about other people. He's always cared for Third more than anyone else, but he's also cares more about himself than anyone else. And he has never been in love, and we see him falling for Third and falling in love with him and realizing what that means, and he wants to be with him. He tries everything to get Third's attention, to show that this isn't just him wanting to sleep with him and then moving on to someone else like he did with every other girl he's with. I don't think he's with a girl longer than half an episode, whereas Third is always there with him. The character of Kai is the most complex because he has so many layers, because he does come across as very shallow, selfish, and then we get to realize that he does care and that he's not all about just the looks and getting the girls, that he wants a relationship. He's never been in love. He's never had someone care for him beyond the physical. And by the end of it, we get to see him truly show how he feels for someone. And he's also henpecked. He's so afraid of Third that he doesn't want to upset him. And then let's move into Third, played by Gunn. The best actor. I think one of the best actors in BLs. This is just in general one of the best actors. He cries so much in this that yes, it gets a bit of a nuisance, but he makes you feel every tear. This actor, all he has to do is change his facial reactions very slightly, and it's just one tear, and you can feel your heart breaking for it. The character Third goes through a lot. I mean, the amount of effort he puts in trying to tell Kai how he feels, to have Kai just dismiss it, or in the case of when Kai pretends to be drunk and kisses Third, yes, it's a really uncomfortable, awkward, and bad kiss, but it's shattering because you find out he did that to hurt Third, to get him to not like Kai anymore. It's a very dark moment in this episode. There are dark moments in this. There is a lot more angst in this. This isn't a bright coloured, happy BL. It's a very dark BL. There's a lot of angst. There's a lot of emotions. This is probably one of my favourite BLs because you feel every range, especially from Third. And then he becomes very cold. He's very cold to other people. He's never cold to Kai, but he's very dismissive of other people. Very callous. But then he is like that towards Kai near the end, and he just pushes his feelings aside and doesn't want anything to do with Kai. And it makes him a very icy cold person, and it did annoy me because it's like you have the opportunity to now tell this person, and instead you want to treat them how they treated you, and that makes you just as bad as them. But there's so many layers to Third. Sorry, I keep looking at my notes. He cries, he's angry, he screams. This actor puts so much into the character, and you feel every moment. I mean, every moment he's on screen, he's acting, and it is never boring. So that is my review. It's not as long as TharnType, but if you have something to say, please leave it in the comment section. Why don't you give me your own thoughts on the characters? I'd love to hear what you think about them. So now we are going to go on to the question and answer section. So let's see. We'll go on to the questions for TharnType and Theory of Love, and then we'll go into questions about me. So either it's Sarah Leo or Sarah Lo. Thank you for congratulating me on the 100 subscribers. Really kind of you. Now, your question was, what did I love most about TharnType and what did I dislike? What I loved most was the development of type. That was my favourite thing. The acting is superb. I think my favourite thing was we got to see a character with a lot of depth. We got to see him build himself up and grow as a character. I think that was my favourite thing about TharnType. I think what I disliked, I didn't like the representation of the LGBT characters. I don't know if, maybe you can help me here. I don't know if it's what Thai people think gay people are like, or they rely on the stereotype of ladyboys and effeminate gays, and trans characters as well. But I feel like it was a very negative spin on them, and also they weren't a great representation. The whole touching of someone when they didn't like it, then posting all that stuff on the blog and online to get Type in trouble. I just don't like the representation that they presented in that. And that's also a dislike. I don't like another thing I dislike is the idea of a gay person in Thai BLs. You either have to be masculine or effeminate. You can't be in between. You can't like certain things that would be considered effeminate. Otherwise, they make you very camp in this. And I'm not a fan of that. And another thing, like, it's nothing to do with TharnType, something I dislike, is sometimes, and it's more to do with props, if you notice, when they talk to someone on the phone, sometimes they don't even dial a number. They just pick up the phone and someone's there straight away, or you can tell they're not even on the phone. And those little things just bug me, because that is something that I pick up on very quickly, because it takes away from the reality of the moment for me. Another thing I also love about TharnType is the dark theme of the show. I like that they gave you an adult theme. It felt more mature and it felt very cerebral. So you had to think about things. And I like both thinking about an episode and just watching a fluffy episode that doesn't have a lot of substance. They gave a lot of substance, a lot of layers to TharnType. Then your next question was my favourite character. It started off as Techno, but I think by the end it was Type. I think, yeah, I would say Type, then Techno. You didn't ask for the other characters, but I would say those two are the biggest highlight for me. Then you asked, do you think Long deserves another chance? This is a very loaded question. The issue is, if he hadn't done what he did to Tar, then yes, he deserves a second chance. Because those people that left Tharn, they just left him because he said that he cheated on them, so they were never worthy of his time. But in the case of Tar, he took away someone's innocence. He defiled them. He sullied them, which means to make them dirty. And it was an evil thing he did. The thing is, you can say anyone deserves a second chance, but when you overstep that boundary, then you don't deserve that second chance. So if we exclude what he did to Tar, then it would have been a yes. But what he did to Tar, why does he deserve a second chance? When he needs to let go and he really needs to sort his mental health out. Thank you for those questions, by the way. And thank you to the 3 people that asked questions. I'm happy that people did. So the next person is, I hope I'm saying this correct. I follow you on Twitter, so I know your name's on there. I won't say your name, but it's KLM0JIRI91. I know that seems a bit convoluted, sorry, but I hope that's correct. My thoughts on TharnType after watching it is it's a great show. I think it's, if you like more mature themes, this is a show for you. If you want to think about things and not just, squeal, scream, blush, but actually want to think about what the show means to you and to a wider audience, this is a great show to watch. And then you ask, what do you think of Tharn and Type's relationship? Some people think it's toxic. I do believe it started off very toxic, very uncomfortable. It was very aggressive. It was all about control, dominance, uncomfortability. We know Tharn invaded Type's space when he's in the shower, and that's a very uncomfortable moment. Very uncomfortable. So I wasn't happy about that, because it just felt like their relationship is very toxic, very uncomfortable, but then we saw it grew into something very beautiful. And that's why you need to watch the whole show, because it goes from something I didn't like in a relationship to watching elements of what makes a good relationship. And trust is one of the most important things in a relationship, and that is something they have at the end. So I think their relationship has a complete 180 and grew into a really strong relationship that a lot of people could emulate or want to achieve. Thank you for those questions, by the way. Then we are going to the last section of questions for TharnType, or Theory of Love, which is from Cindy Bowser. I do have to say, I do love your surname, but that's because I grew up on Mario and things like that. So I always think of Bowser and I think of that, because I don't really know much about actual games. But I know about Mario. So your question was, compare Theory of Love and TharnType. Well, they're both BLs. They both centre around university, college student age. They centre around a relationship that has a lot of issues at the beginning and is resolved by the end of it. Also, something to compare is they are both more mature in theme. They are nowhere near as lovey-dovey, fluffy as a lot of BLs are. They have a lot of, both of these shows are very angst-driven. So you're going to get a lot more heartache, a lot more dark, upsetting moments than you are going to get light moments. And that's where kind of comparing in terms of the good side ends. And then the things that differ is the build-up of TharnType starts more at the beginning and feels more mature. And then in Theory of Love, it's still a bit youngish. And it's also, TharnType is a lot heavier. Theory of Love barely has any kisses in it, but the kisses are good. There's no sex in... There's no sex scene between the two guys in Theory of Love. It relies way... I think they both... Theory of Love relays more on the emotion at the beginning, but then they both... The shows come together and relay on that by the end of it. TharnType is darker in theme, much darker in theme, because it deals with rape, whereas Theory of Love is to deal with depression, heartache, unrequited love. But both shows have really stepped up the BL genre and taken it into an area that I like, an area where you can think about the show and relies way more on touching your emotions and building a relationship. So those are the questions about TharnType and Theory of Love. I should get ahead of this. The reason I'm starting to rush is I'm not sure how much my phone has life left in it to record this. It's almost an hour and a half long, so I'm not sure what's going to happen. Okay, so Solo, we're going to go back to your questions. Okay, you all asked, where am I from? Now, you've said England, yes. It's a good thing you didn't. I'm not Welsh, Scottish, or Irish, because they would not like you calling them English. I am from the United Kingdom. I am from London, to be exact. That is where I'm from. I also want to say to KLM M0JIRI91, thank you for saying you love my accent. No one has ever said they like my accent before. I've never had someone say they love it, ever. So that was really nice. Thank you for all that. But yes, I am from London, the capital. And then we've got from Sarah Lowe, how did you discover BLs? I'm trying to rack my brain into how I found out about these. Because I have two ideas in my head. I'm not great with memory. One way is I was watching Fine Brothers Entertainment. They were putting a video on K-pop. And from K-pop, I watched certain videos. And from that, I got recommendations. I also watch a lot of male shows, clips on YouTube. So it might have come from that, where I was watching. I used to watch a program called Verboten Liebe, which I know my German's not great, but it means forbidden love. And from that, I then found other shows like Scam, and just videos of guys together throughout the world. I don't just watch that, but I got a recommendation, I think, to watch Thai films at first, because I found they were never happy. All the BLs were sad before they started making them happy. So this was before Lovesick and stuff like that I found out about BLs. And then from the Thai movies, I found Lovesick. And then from Lovesick, I just continued to watch BLs. But I never got into really watching them until SOTUS. I hope that wasn't too convoluted. Just to explain, I will be watching season 2 of TharnType, so you can look forward to that. Now we're going to get into, I guess, Cindy's questions. So we're going to go into yours, Cindy. You asked about my accent, if I worked on it or was brought up with it. It's both. So my family is from London. They don't sound exactly as educated as you say I sound. So thank you for that. I did work on my accent, but I was also brought up in an area that had a well-to-do accent. But I trained a bit to develop it. I'm not posh. That would be David Attenborough and people who talk like this. I don't talk like that. I'm just well-spoken. Sometimes. My background. I wasn't sure when you said background if you meant my nationality, my ethnicity, my heritage, or you just meant work-wise. So I'm not sure about that, but in terms of background, if you're talking about where I am from, I'm Italian, Maltese, and Irish. But now if you're talking about my background in work, because you asked what do I do for a living, I am an actor. So yes, I act in TV and film and stage, but I also am an first assistant director. So I also do behind the scenes stuff. So I am the person who creates a call sheet for the actors. I am a person who the director will call, and I will have to tell actors to stand in a place. I would tell everyone on set to be quiet. I would then say action. I will make sure that props, hair and makeup are all connected to me. So when we need them, they're either on set or they have the actors ready. I was also in the last project a casting director, so I casted the actors because I've done that before. So that is what I do. I act, but I also work behind the screen. I like both. I prefer being in front of the camera, but working behind is also great because then I can tell people what to do, and they're not thinking I'm being mean. Okay, so you said I've told you about how did I get started doing reactions. So I'm just looking through your questions here. How I got started doing reaction was I reacted to someone called After Show Reactions. She did reactions to Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And so I've always loved watching people's reactions to programs, especially ones I've seen, because I like to see if they enjoy it as much as I do, or if they didn't enjoy it and why. And also, I love seeing people's reactions to when they really get into a show and you can see when they become fully immersed in what they're watching. And it's just always, as an actor, it's always good to see what people appreciate when they watch people act, because we like to know what helped you stay watching a program or why you didn't like it. And so I watched her reactions, and I wanted to start doing reactions then, but life didn't allow it at that time because I also care for my disabled mother, so I have to look after her as well. And I wasn't sure what to do with reactions, and then I let time pass, and I decided, why not just do it? Put yourself out there. If people don't like it, they don't like it. You can't force someone to watch something that you do. And so I just thought, I'll bite the bullet and I will react to stuff. I looked at reactor stuff and what they like to do and then what I like to do, and decided I have to react to what I like. What inspired me, it just watching these reaction videos. After Show Reacts did inspire me to do this because why not? It keeps you busy when you're not working, because actors can be hard to work, and assistant directors, you're not working 24/7, 365. You have to find your work, and it can be hard. And her reactions inspired me to just go for it and see what happens. It's better for you to try something out, and if it fails, it fails, but you never know, it might succeed. Now, Cindy, then you asked downfalls to doing reactions. Downfalls can be that you start making these videos for everyone else. You want to get it out on time. You want to make sure that people like it. You can become reliant on views, because if you put something out and it doesn't get any reviews, it's not a good feeling. And I have unfortunately seen the downside of that. People have watched my BLs, and I do have to thank, and I will say their Twitter handle, and then you can follow them, and it will be in the description box below. It is at golf_type. They put a little compilation of my TharnType reactions, and that's why people have decided to come and watch this channel. Before that, it was hard to get people to react to what I was doing. I had a big decrease in people reacting, and that's the downside, because I do react to Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Supernatural and something called True Callings, but barely anyone is really watching them, and it is disheartening. I'm not going to give up on those shows, but it becomes a bit disheartening for you to see that no one is watching it, because you put a lot of effort into this. It's long hours. Editing is not as easy as you think. You have to make sure that you get nice amount in. Sometimes it has to make sense, and then sometimes you forget that you're relying on your reaction. You have to have a reaction to something. You have to sometimes cut the scene off midway. And then you have to upload it, make sure it's correct. It could get blocked. My Supernatural gets blocked, which means that on mobiles in certain countries you can't watch it. I've never watched a reaction on my phone. I've replied to comments on my phone, but I watch via laptop. But I know a lot of people will watch things on their phone, so that's really hindered me in that. Also, like I said, you become reliant on views and wanting subscribers, because you want people to enjoy what you do. A good part is you get to interact with new people. I've gotten to speak to you guys a little bit. Like I said, if I can create a Discord, we might get to know each other better. I feel like it brings people from all over the world to enjoy something they love. And in this case, most of you are probably BL actors, viewers, sorry. And a good part is it builds up your confidence. It gets you to react. It gets you to learn about editing. And to use software. It gets you to just be honest with yourself when you're reacting to stuff, be it good or bad, if you like something or not. And it's just a good tool to have. I say to all of you, just make a video, react to it, or do a challenge. Because I'm not going to do just reaction videos. I will do challenge videos. I will do maybe a blog or a vlog. Try it out. And that's the good thing about this, is if you don't like it, you can always just delete it. Your next question was, what makes a good drama, be it BL or drama in general? I think a good drama has to have a multi-layered character. You have to sympathize with them, you have to get angry with them, you have to be happy for them. They have to be multi-layered. You also have to have a nice amount of drama, but not too much. If the show is complete drama and it's very dramatic, you as an audience and an actor will tire from it very quickly. So I think humour is needed to break it up. Shakespeare's a very good example of someone who does dramatic scenes and then breaks it up with humour. A light-hearted scene will do wonders for a show. I also think you need to see characters actually go through turmoil. You need to see heartache. You need to see the good times. We need to know that what we're seeing feels like it's real life. And we need to see these actors bring it to life. So for me, that's what makes a good drama, is dash of drama, humour, fantastic acting, and seeing a character be multi-layered and go through things. They have to have lived life for it to work. Then you asked what my top 3 drama movies were. And I'm trying to think of that. Buffy the Vampire Slayer, yes, when it starts, it's much more of a teen drama, quite camp the first season. But if you get past that and you get to see the other seasons, it's very dramatic, and it brings the element of drama, comedy. The characters go through a lot, they grow, they're multi-layered, and they draw me in. I actually want to continue to watch. Philadelphia, the movie Philadelphia, is also a fantastic movie to watch. It's got Tom Hanks as the main guy. It will pull at your heartstrings, but it's a very well performed film with a lot of drama in it. And then I think another one that I would consider is Killing Eve. That's more of a dramatic thriller suspense type thing, but I think the actor Sandra Oh is one of my favourite actresses, and I think she's amazing. And the other actress, the main one as well, who's in it, is superb. It will keep you on the edge of your seat the whole time. I really do think you should all go and watch that, and then tell me what you think. And then you said, what advice would I give to people to get past episode 1 and the uncomfortability factor of that, plus the shower scene of TharnType? I would say to advise people, this is not about me, but to advise people about that, is there is much more to TharnType than what you see in that first episode. And I think for a lot of people, you will be very happy on how that ends. I'm going to mention, because I did actually have this as a question, I do apologise. The last question is my top 10 BLs. Now, I haven't included European or Western BLs. If I was to, then I would include Scum/Scam, depending on how you really say it, in my top 3. It is one of the best acted BLs I've ever seen. From just the stuttering in speech to the range of emotions to everything about it feels natural. I really think you should all go and watch that. I've only seen season 3, and it's the only one I've seen of all the iterations, so I have no idea if any other country did it better. Now, my top 10 BLs will always change. Now, for me, I won't go too much into detail about why. If you want a separate video for my top 10 BLs, then I will do that. And I would give my reasons why. But right now, I'll just give a little part, which is... So number 10 for me was Dark Blue Kiss. For one, I like the actors. Yes, Nu's kissing skills leave a lot to be desired. And it does feel like he's very uncomfortable actually kissing another guy. But it was more mature in theme. And it was more dramatic. And again, I like that. I like that these characters had to have issues before they could resolve anything that was going on between them. My number 9 would be History 2, Crossing the Line. I think all the histories have got progressively better. I just felt this one, they were a bit fluffy. Just the acting was fantastic. I'm not going to go too much into it. You have to watch these to figure out what you feel about them. My number 8 would be Together With Me, The Next Chapter. It's a few years later from Together With Me, or Bad Romance, I should say. Again, it's more mature in theme. They deal with the idea of infidelity and the repercussions that have, and also when you become stuck in the mud, when a relationship feels like it's run its course, or you've become stuck because you've fallen into a pattern and you're not paying attention to one another. My number 7 would be History 3, Make Our Days Count. I didn't really enjoy the first few episodes because, again, there wasn't much substance to it, I felt, and I got a bit uncomfortable in the aggressive nature of certain characters. But by the end of it, I think a lot of you will cry and just go through a roller coaster of emotions. There are elements I have problems with the last episode, but I won't go into that too much to spoil it. It's one of those shows that by the end of it, it is a masterpiece in acting. Number 6 will be Sotus. That is what got me into BLs. And yes, there's not many kiss scenes and it's very innocent. And again, I find the actor Chris maybe is slightly a bit homophobic and uncomfortable with kissing another guy. But the reason they're number 6 is the acting, the chemistry they have on screen is amazing, and it's so different off screen. I don't think they have any chemistry off screen. I don't see that type of chemistry between them. That's why they're so high up here, because of how much they make you believe when they're acting and how good they are as actors. Number 5 will be History 3, Trapped. I just think the main characters were fantastic. And again, it's adult themed. They're not high school kids. They're police officers and gangsters. And there's a lot of episodes. And it just got better as each episode went along. And we got to know a bit more about the characters and their history. There are elements that could have done better, but it was and it ended on I think a good note. It ended on something that you could have hope for. Number 4 will be Sotus S series. I've mentioned this previously. I like when they're older and the theme is more mature and they go through a struggle of what happens when you've been in a relationship with someone for so long. And that's an issue they have in this. And then number 3 would be TharnType. It would have been lower down on the list, but as it went along, the episodes got better and better. And I think the last 3-4 episodes are some of the best acted BLs out there. Number 2 would be Together With Me. Yeah, I think a lot of people love this because it's a lot hot and steamier. Korn and Knock are both very good looking men. And I do think it relies on people being more attracted to them than the storyline. But actually, I think their acting was really good. And there's a lot of drama in it, a lot of emotion. And I personally enjoyed the whole show. I think it's a great instance of two actors who just let go of any inhibitions, both on and off. They have some of the best chemistry along with Mew and Golf outside of acting, and they really just fully go for their characters, and that's something I appreciate. And then my number one is Theory of Love. I just think the acting was great. I was drawn into it from the first moment. And I just think everyone should go and give it a go. If you don't like it, you don't like it. If you do, you do. Um, I just want to say thank you for this. This is going to be a bit of an issue to edit if I edit much of it. It's almost 2 hours long. I hope you weren't too bored going through this. This is my first review of this. I will be doing more reviews of other shows and programs as it goes along. Thank you for listening, and thank you for taking the time to ask me these questions and get to know me and my thoughts on TharnType and Theory of Love. I look forward to you watching Why Are You? And hopefully that'll be out soon. And have a good day.